All right, guys, we are back with another reaction here to the Napoleonic Wars on Epic History TV. We watched the first one, and there was a lot of good information in there. A lot of stuff that, like I said before, never knew about. And I think it's really important that we learn about this stuff because, these are some defining ages of history. Maybe not world history necessarily, although you could argue that, but European history for sure, and French history, for very sure. So we're going to continue here with the Battle of Jena-Auerstedt, whatever. I don't know how to say it. I'm sure we'll hear it in 1806. So again, thanks to Epic History TV for this, and History March. It's channels like these guys, and I think another one I saw was like Kings and Generals, and other channels that bring you this history, and we can learn. And it's really great that this is available to us, so we can just watch along and kind of learn some stuff. So here we go.
Collaboration supported by our sponsor, the Great Courses Plus. In December 1805, at the Battle of Austerlitz, Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French, won a crushing victory against the joint forces of Austria and Russia.
Right, Austerlitz, yeah.
Napoleon now dominated Europe, able to hand out spoils as he saw fit. In February 1806, he sent an army led by Marshal Massena to overthrow the King of Naples, who had dared to side with his enemies, and gave his throne to his own brother Joseph instead. Another brother, Louis, was made King of Holland. His German allies, Bavaria and Württemberg, were elevated to the status of kingdoms, while Napoleon made himself protector of the Confederation of the Rhine, a new alliance of German states that would contribute 60,000 troops to his army.
It's like the Holy Roman Empire.
In recognition of the new reality, Emperor Francis of Austria formally dissolved the Holy Roman Empire.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Founded by Charlemagne 1,000 years before, but now without influence or purpose. Austria had been humiliated. France remained at war with Britain, Sweden and Russia. But in the summer of 1806, all eyes were on Prussia.
Okay. So, that's really interesting. The Holy Roman Empire, I like Crusader Kings. Great game. So I'm, I know a little bit about that, but it is interesting to see all these little, states, or all these little areas, kind of after the Holy Roman Empire leaves. They're all just kind of little independent, not city-states, but kind of like that. And then Napoleon comes in here, puts a bunch together, and now he, I guess, is the protector of it, is what it said. So that's cool. It's kind of reforming the Holy Roman Empire in a way, partially. I don't really know a lot about Prussia, so I'm interested to learn about that. I see Berlin, so I'm guessing this is kind of like the start of modern Germany, maybe? Cool. Napoleon is a monster who has emerged from the mire.
The Prussian king, Frederick William III, regarded Napoleon with deep mistrust and had been about to join the coalition against him when news arrived of its disastrous defeat at Austerlitz. He was heavily influenced by his wife, the celebrated and popular Queen Louise, who detested France and Napoleon.
Yeah, seems like
she led the influential War Party at the Prussian court. Matters came to a head over Hanover, a German state which had belonged to British King George III, been occupied by the French, and given by Napoleon to Prussia as compensation for other territorial changes. Now the Prussians learned that Napoleon had secretly offered to give Hanover back to Britain in exchange for peace.
That's not good.
Frederick's advisors now persuaded him that war was the only honourable course. But Prussia then made a basic strategic blunder, sending an ultimatum to Napoleon without consulting its new allies in the Fourth Coalition. Their forces were too far away to help Prussia, who would now face Napoleon's Grande Armée with just the small state of Saxony for support.
Behind the fine facade, all was mildewed. That's an interesting quote, actually. Basically saying, you know, it looks good on the surface, but underneath it is not. Oops.
In 1806, the Prussian army had a fearsome reputation that dated back 50 years to the reign of Frederick the Great. Napoleon, a student of history, regarded it with respect. But Prussia's army had been allowed to rest on its laurels. Its generals were old, its staff work hindered by bureaucracy and personal rivalries, its movements ponderous and predictable. Prussian soldiers, however, could be relied on to fight with pride and determination, while Prussian cavalry was regarded as amongst the best in Europe.
Not to stop it again, but I really like this flag or symbol. That's really cool.
In October 1806, Napoleon invaded Saxony with an army of 166,000 men and 256 guns. Advancing in 3 columns, the French crossed the mountain forests of the Thüringer Wald, along roads carefully reconnoitred by scouts and spies. Napoleon intended to threaten Leipzig and force a decisive battle with the Prussian army, which he believed was near Gera. The Prussians were, in fact, further west, concentrating near Erfurt, on the west bank of the river Saale. Its commander, the Duke of Brunswick, had hoped to threaten the flank of Napoleon's advance. But wrong-footed by the speed of the French, he now ordered a retreat north to find a new defensive line.
Okay. Blitzkrieg.
On the 10th of October, at Saalfeld, Marshal Lannes' 5 Corps clashed with a Prussian advance guard, commanded by Prince Louis Frederick, the king's cousin. The Prussian force was routed, and Prince Louis himself killed in combat with a quartermaster of the French 10th Hussars.
Wow. Like single combat?
3 days later, Lannes made contact with a large Prussian force near Jena and sent news to Napoleon. The French emperor, believing he'd found the main Prussian army, rapidly issued orders for his corps to concentrate for battle at Jena. Bernadotte's 1 Corps and Davout's 3 Corps were to cross the Saale and fall on the Prussian flank from the north.
Okay.
But Napoleon was wrong. Lannes faced a 35,000-strong Prussian rearguard, commanded by General Hohenlohe.
Let's just take a look at this battlefield real quick. There's a lot of little towns like right next to each other. Interesting. So it looks like this is higher ground, and it's not as, I mean, I don't know how accurate this is topographically. So they're kind of entering from the high ground into this kind of, looks like more of a valley right here. And there's a lot of little rivers too. Okay.
The main Prussian army, 52,000 men under the Duke of Brunswick, was further north, moving straight into the path of Davout's 3 Corps.
Oh boy. In warfare, there is but one favorable moment. The great art is to seize it. That sounds exactly like something Napoleon would say. Just from like the first video of seeing him, he seems like a guy who literally just has no fear, just goes like into battle and risks it all. I suppose you have to be if you want to be, you know, remembered in history and one of the greats.
The Battle of Jena began at 6:30 a.m. on the 14th of October, in thick fog. Marshal Lannes' 5 Corps already had a toehold on the plateau west of the town and river. His first task was to drive back the Prussians and win room for the rest of the French army, arriving by the hour to deploy. His infantry led the way, and fierce fighting broke out for the villages of Cospeda, Klosewitz and Lützeroda. Meanwhile, Augereau's 7 Corps advanced through a ravine, emerging onto the plateau on Lannes' left flank, while Soult's 4 Corps climbed steep tracks to form on his right. Napoleon joined Lannes in the centre of the battlefield, organising a 25-gun battery to support the attack on Vierzehnheiligen. The village was won, but then lost to a determined Prussian counterattack.
Okay, so they're fighting back.
On the right, around 10 a.m., Soult's infantry secured Clausewitz, but was counterattacked on its right flank near Rödigen. A decisive charge by Soult's light cavalry drove off the Prussians, routing their infantry and capturing 2 enemy colours. As 6 Corps began to arrive on the plateau, its fearless but impetuous commander, Marshal Ney, ignored orders and dived into the fighting around Vierzehnheiligen, becoming briefly cut off by a Prussian counterattack.
Okay, that's not good. But he said in the video that this is a plateau. Is this higher than like the surrounding areas? Is that what I'm getting? So like they had to go, Napoleon's army was going up? I guess, I don't know. I guess I don't know a lot about geography, but it didn't seem like this area would be like high ground, you know what I mean? Like this area of Europe. But maybe it is, I guess. I don't know.
And having to be rescued by Guard cavalry. General Hohenlohe was expecting the arrival of 15,000 more troops under General Ruchel at any moment. Until then, he remained largely inactive, shoring up his line and ordering limited counterattacks. But he had run out of time. Napoleon had begun the day with just 25,000 men. By 12:30, a steady stream of reinforcements had brought his strength up to 96,000.
Oh boy. Yikes.
As the Emperor rode past the Imperial Guard, one young soldier, eager to be sent into action, called out, "Forward!" Napoleon stopped and demanded to know who had spoken, then rebuked the soldier as a beardless youth who ought not to offer advice until he too had commanded in 30 battles.
That's crazy. But he doesn't have a beard. This guy at least has a mustache. I'm assuming this is a guy because he has his hat off. I'm assuming this guy's the commander or like a captain or something because he got extra stuff. But that's pretty funny that this guy is like, yeah, let's go fight. And he's like, shut up. I'll tell us when to fight. And then he makes fun of him for being a beardless youth when Napoleon doesn't even have a beard. I suppose it's more of a metaphor than anything, though. Like, in terms of experience.
But the moment had arrived. Although the Guard, to its frustration, remained in reserve, the other French corps were ordered forward in a general attack. The Prussian army began to give ground. At first it kept its discipline, but then disintegrated into a general rout. Murat's cavalry were launched in pursuit, riding down and sabering hundreds of fleeing Prussians.
Dang.
General Ruchel's 2 divisions finally arrived at the worst possible moment. They briefly held up 5 Corps' advance, but were soon outflanked, broken up by cannon fire, and charged down by French cuirassiers.
Man. Your marshal must be seeing double. Colonel Falcon, that's a cool name. To Marshal Davout. Colonel Falcon, I like that.
Meanwhile, 12 miles to the north, near Auerstädt, Marshal Davout was marching southwest,
That's right, Davout.
expecting to fall on the Prussian left wing at Jena. Instead, he encountered the Duke of Brunswick's main Prussian army, heading north to take up new positions. Davout's 3 Corps, 27,000 men and 48 guns, was about to face odds of 2 to 1. While Bernadotte's 1 Corps, which had orders to support Davout, was nowhere to be seen.
Uh-oh.
Davout, nicknamed the Iron Marshal, showed no signs of alarm.
The Iron Marshal, that's cool.
He formed his 1st Division into a defensive line centered on the village of Hassenhausen. His infantry forming squares to repel a series of cavalry charges by General Blücher's advance guard. His other 2 infantry divisions arrived to strengthen the line, standing firm in the face of repeated Prussian attacks. But Prussian movements were slow and poorly coordinated, nor did they use their numerical advantage to try and outflank Davout. At a crucial moment, the Duke of Brunswick was shot through the eyes, a wound that proved fatal.
Oh, shot through the eyes? Like both eyes? That's disturbing. That's nasty. I mean, obviously it's war. You get shot, but it's like right through the eyes of all places? That's crazy.
King Frederick William himself took command. Several Prussian units remained uncommitted, but the king, convinced he faced the main French army under Napoleon, dithered. Around 12:15, Marshal Davout counterattacked. The Prussian army turned and fled.
Wow. That's crazy.
Davout had won a stunning victory against the odds, but at a heavy price. His corps suffered 25% casualties, 1 man in 4 killed or wounded,
Holy.
while inflicting twice as many losses on the Prussians.
Tell the marshal that he, his generals, and his troops have gained everlasting claims on my gratitude. I'm assuming he's talking about Davout. The Iron Marshal, that's a cool name. I wonder how he got that name, or who gave that to him. Did Napoleon give him that nickname? Because that's cool. But yeah, what did he say? 2 to 1 odds, and he routed them? That's pretty legit. It's really hard, especially, obviously in this day, you know, at their time in history, having more numbers probably meant more than it does now, obviously. Like, you can have less numbers now in a modern war and still fight off the enemy fairly well if you have, like, the technology. But yeah, back then, I'm sure, you know, if you had 50,000 and your enemy had 200,000, that's a really hard battle. So the fact that he was able to fight them off, and then that guy got shot through the eyes, bro, that's wild.
When news reached Napoleon that Marshal Davout had engaged and defeated the main Prussian army, he reacted first with disbelief, then heaped praise upon the Iron Marshal, later awarding him the title Duke of Auerstädt. Marshal
boss.
Bernadotte, in contrast, was nearly court-martialed for failing to support Davout.
Wow.
Napoleon's army began a masterful pursuit of the beaten Prussians, giving them no time to regather their strength. 2 weeks after the twin battles of Jena-Auerstedt, Napoleon's troops, led by Davout's heroic III Corps, entered Berlin. The next day, General Hohenlohe surrendered at Prenzlau. At Lübeck, General Blücher and 20,000 Prussians were driven out of the city in heavy fighting and forced to surrender, while 25,000 Prussians besieged at Magdeburg surrendered to Marshal Ney.
Dang.
Prussia's army had been devastated by a Napoleonic blitzkrieg.
Blitzkrieg,
In
yep.
just 33 days, Prussia had lost 20,000 dead, 140,000 prisoners,
What?
800 guns, and 250 standards.
What? 140,000 prisoners. How do you even, like, guard that many prisoners? Like, where do you even put them? You just put them all in, like, one city or something? Like, how do you even become that many prisoners? I don't understand. That's crazy. Yeah, Blitzkrieg, like I was saying, man, Napoleon, he just goes, man. He just attacks, quick, efficient attacks, and the enemy just kind of just doesn't know what to do, you know? That's crazy. That's wild.
It was a humiliation that proud Prussians like General Blücher would neither forget nor forgive. Unlike Saxony, King Frederick William refused to make peace with Napoleon. He continued to hold out in East Prussia, trusting in the approaching Russian armies to rescue his kingdom. Despite another glorious victory for Napoleon and the Grande Armée, the war was not won yet. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of the greatest military commanders of all time. But who were some of the worst?
No.
Find out with the Great Courses Plus lecture series, History's Great Military Blunders and the Lessons They Teach. A litany of poor leadership,
Turn that down a little bit. No, that was a crazy episode. But it just shows you how Napoleon's way of making war was so seems like it was so new in that era that nobody really knew what to do, you know? It seems like nobody was prepared. They can't get their troops into order. You know, by the time their reinforcements arrive, Napoleon's already crushing the army. So, support the Great Courses Plus people, Epic History TV, all that stuff. The narrator is great, Charles Novi. Don't know, but that's awesome. Thank you for everybody who is producing these Epic History TV episodes. That's awesome. But let's talk about that battle just a little bit more. What really struck me too during this episode was the fact that, you know, you had Davout separate coming from the north, and you know, you had the Prussians with twice as many men, right? Like I was saying, usually that gives you a huge leg up over your enemy when you have more than they do in terms of men and cannon. But the preparation and the leadership is something I think that kind of goes by the wayside in a lot of these discussions, because as he said, you had Davout, the Iron Marshal, didn't panic, didn't retreat, just steadied his men and fought off the Prussians and then counterattacked. And, of course, the Archduke getting shot through the eyes, that's crazy. But that probably didn't help either. But I guess even if he hadn't, I don't know how much that would have mattered. It seemed like the Prussians weren't as organized or as disciplined. And the fact that they lost 140,000 men as prisoners, it seems to me, and I don't know if this is true, it just seems to me that they surrendered quickly. Maybe not, but if you take almost 140,000, that's a lot of men. That's a lot of people, man. So, another win for Napoleon. Not surprising. It just seems like he's way better prepared. He has his marshals seem smart. I mean, except for Ney, I guess. In that battle, it seemed like Ney was like just flying forward without any sort of care. But it just seemed like Napoleon's army is way more prepared, way more disciplined, they have way better leaders. So yeah, I'm expecting more Napoleon wins in future episodes. But yeah, again, thank you to Epic History TV and Charles Nove, the narrator, these guys, everybody here who produces these. I'm excited to keep going and learning more for these battles. It seems like that's a lot to learn, man. It's more than just fighting. There's like intrigue and politics and geography, areas of Europe that I don't know anything about. So that's really awesome. So thank you guys for joining me here. If you want, you can subscribe. We can learn together. Comment. Tell me things I don't know. I love to learn. So if you have any sort of knowledge on this stuff or anything I've said that you think is wrong, just tell me. I mean, I don't get offended. I love to know things and learn and so I can be more knowledgeable for other people too. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Peace.